occurred to me like a giant slap upside my head that the reason I felt disgusted is because I was trying to blame people for things that were my fault. Because this operation, like every operation, when you are the senior leader on the battlefield, you're in charge of everything. And every one of those mistakes that happened are because of me. They're because of me. Because I failed as a leader to convey how important it was to pass your location. I failed to convey as a leader how important the limit of advance was. I failed to convey how important it was to keep control of those Iraqi soldiers. Those things are my fault that that's happened. Not any one of those guys. And so when the commanding officer showed up and the command master chief and the investigating officer, and they're sitting there in the room with my wounded guy who's got his head bandaged up. It's Matt Hasby. You know Matt, right?
Matt was my swim buddy in second phase.
So I'm looking at Matt in the back. I mean, it's only a miracle that he's alive, right? He had 50 cal punching through the roof. He's laying there. He drew out his pistol so he could like fend for himself as he got overrun.
Holy fuck.
So, and I will say, with that moment when I realized why I felt disgusted, I felt so relieved, like, oh, you're an idiot. This is you. And I felt, okay, this is you. This is what you did. You're in charge, you're responsible, and this is what the leader does. And so I went in the room and, I asked that question, whose fault was this? And there was a pretty good moment of silence. And then someone chimed in, well, hey, it was my fault. I did this. And I was like, no, it wasn't your fault. And then the raidman said, no, it was my fault. I said, no, it wasn't your fault.
Your whole team was in there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, everyone in Task Unit Bruiser was in there, and the command master chief, and the skipper, and the investigating officer. And I went around the room and asked, whose fault is this? And everybody, whether it was they wanted to blame the Iraqis, whether they wanted to take ownership themselves, everybody was chiming in on whose fault it was. And then I said, no, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. There's only one person to blame, and that person's me. And that is the truth. That is the truth. When you are in charge of a team and something goes wrong, it is your fault. And then I said, and here's some things that we're going to do to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And I started talking about time and space deconfliction. I started talking about how we were going to overly signal. We went through some protocols. But that was it.